Welcome back to our part 2 of our 5 tips for companies to lessen the blow of a cyber attack. To recap, we've covered in part 1, tip number 1, asset inventory, tip number 2, disaster recovery plan, and now let's continue with part 2.
All right, so our third tip is to get some training. At Darkhound Security Operations, we have a number of services that we offer, starting with the security awareness training and then moving up to penetration testing and eventually to a red team assessment. It's so important to get the basics and the fundamentals down first. And to make sure that your users have some basic training and make them aware of the fact that they are the first line of defense in your organization.
Okay, that's a really good point, because you wouldn't want to put your NFL team up against like a JV football team, right? You want to get the basics down, you want to get the fundamentals down before you have a pen test or a red team assessment. Right?
Exactly, yeah. Absolutely. If you don't have the fundamentals in place, then a pen test is going to be just a waste of everyone's time and money.
Okay, so what other security tips do you have for us?
Okay, so number 4 may be the most important, and that is two-factor authentication, or 2FA.
Okay, so we talked some about that in our last video. So tell me more about 2FA.
Okay, so if we'll talk about Windows, because the vast majority of business runs on Windows. Yeah. So when you log into a Windows domain, you're asked for your username and password.
Right.
With two-factor authentication, and the solution that we sell is Duo, when you log in, when you enter your username and password, it asks you for the second factor of authentication. So it'll either send you a push notification to your phone or mobile device, or it'll send you a code. And it's a little bit more secure than text, because instead of happening over SMS, this happens through proprietary and encrypted system that will push. So it's a little bit different than sending a text message code, which is harder to fake. So a solution like Duo is a little bit more secure than some other 2FA solutions.
So has this ever impacted you in a security engagement?
As a matter of fact, it has. I was on a penetration testing engagement for one of our clients, and I'd managed to harvest credentials using the power of the force, but I was not able to leverage those credentials because they had two-factor authentication. I neither had the time nor the inclination to find that user, find their phone number, reach out and phish them, and try to social engineer them into accepting the push notification. So it actually stopped me on an engagement from compromising the client.
Okay, Dave, how about one more tip before we wrap this up?
Sounds good. My last tip is to get yourself a password manager.
Okay, now is that something you have to pay for?
There are paid options. In fact, we sell one. But there are also free Libre open source options as well, like KeePass. And what's great about KeePass is that or any password manager, is that you only have to remember one password and then it'll store a bunch of them for you.
Okay, so why not just memorize all your passwords?
Okay, good question. It's a valid question. And I am maybe an edge case here, but my password manager has over 50 passwords in it. And I don't have the mental bandwidth to memorize all those passwords, to generate difficult passwords, and to keep them all straight.
So a password manager will generate passwords too, right?
That's right. It'll generate them more complex than you could memorize, and then you keep your bandwidth free for other interesting things.
Okay, Dave, just to recap, our 5 tips are asset inventory, disaster recovery plan, training or engagements, right? 2FA, two-factor authentication, and a password manager.
That's correct.
Yeah.